16 days of advocacy to end sexual and gender-based violence have come to an end this 2025. So what was done? What progress has been made over the years? And what do we want to achieve as a nation in this regard come December of 2026? Program Analyst, UN Women Nigeria, Ending Violence Against Women, Prevention and Mitigation Services Department, joins us tonight to analyze this and the new dimension sexual and gender-based violence has taken. Tonight, we ask if the Nigerian government is ready for this new challenge. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I'm Kayla Megwa. Let's begin with our Abuja wrap, shall we? Engineer Farouk Ahmed of the NMDPRA and Gbenga Komolafe of the NUPRC have resigned. There was much ado about tinted permits in the nation's capital. The NLC protested rising insecurity, and the president sought the repeal and reenactment of the 2024 to 2025 Appropriation Acts. Please watch this.
President Bola Tinubu has emphasized the need for a united front and collective action to address the challenges confronting the West African region, such as terrorism, violent extremism, and unconstitutional changes of government. This was part of the welcome address delivered by Vice President Kashim Shettima, who represented President Tinubu at the 68th Ordinary Session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Governments taking place at the State House Conference Center. President Tinubu has sympathized with the government and people of Bayelsa State over the passing of the Deputy Governor, Senator Lawrence Erojakpo. The president extended his heartfelt condolences to the governor of the state, Doye Deri, and the wife of the Deputy Governor, Barrister Beatrice Erojakpo, their children, friends, and associates who worked closely with the diligent public servant. According to the statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, President Tinubu acknowledged the selflessness and patriotism of the Deputy Governor, who served the state as Commissioner for Works and Infrastructure before being elected Senator representing Bayelsa West Senatorial District. Keep politics honorable and let governance focus on results. These are the words of President Bola Tinubu at the public presentation of a book in honor of former President Muhammadu Buhari held in Abuja. According to the president, true nation building must, however, involve not just the leaders but the entire citizenry. President Tinubu praises the legacies of late President Buhari in the areas of security and social justice, describing him as a man of humility and vision.
Our political journey together taught me that cooperation across differences is not weakness, it is wisdom. Nation building demands that we compete passionately and we compete dispassionately. Govern responsibly. President Muhammadu Buhari understood that the contest ends when the oath begins. In his memory, let us keep our politics honorable and our governance focused on results. Nigeria is greater than any tribe, language, faith, or political party.
The presidency has confirmed the resignation of Engineer Farouk Ahmed, Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, and Engineer Gbenga Komolafe, head of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. In a swift response, President Bola Tinubu has forwarded the names of 2 new nominees to the Senate for confirmation. The Nigerian police is insisting on the enforcement of the tinted glass permits from January 2026. The Force Public Relations Officer, Mr. Benjamin Hundeyin, stated this during a media briefing in Abuja, advising Nigerians to obtain their permits in good time ahead of the enforcement exercise. However, the Nigerian Bar Association is kicking against the proposal, stating that it is not binding on Nigerians. Members of the Nigerian Labour Congress NLC and their civil society allies have staged a protest in the Federal Capital Territory, demanding immediate solution to the rising security challenges across the country. The Abuja protest is led by the NLC president, Mr. Joe Ajero, who decried the deteriorating security situation in the country, especially as workers and students become regular victims of the menace. The protest in Abuja happened under the tight security supervision of a combined team of police, Department of State Service, and the Army.
Welcome back. In our focus on the FCT, the federal government is calling for collaborative efforts in the ongoing campaigns to end violence against women and gender-based violence in general. In a series of activities heralding 16 days of activism to commemorate the United Nations campaign against gender-based violence on women, the federal government, alongside development partners, emphasized the need for a working synergy to defeat the menace of violence against women and young girls. Meanwhile, the wife of the Plateau State Governor, Mrs. Helen Mutwang, and the wife of the Governor of Zamfara State, Mrs. Huriya Dauda Lawal, are both calling for stronger government action and community support to protect women and girls. The 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence is an annual international campaign that begins on November the 25th, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and concludes on December the 10th, Human Rights Day. This campaign was initiated in 1991 to raise awareness and advocate for the elimination of all forms of gender-based violence. It's an advocacy that offers the Nigerian government an opportunity to assess its ability to protect women and girls from violence, giving them a voice in a world that seeks to stifle their voices. This year's 16 Days of Activism was heralded by spates of kidnappings across states in Nigeria, especially the 25 schoolgirls kidnapped from the Government Girls Secondary School, Maga, Kebbi State. To mark this year's commemoration, the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs hosted this high-level engagement on ending gender-based violence, where there were calls for collaborations to end the menace. The partners reiterated their call during a media briefing after the engagement.
In response, UNSPA is focusing on how adolescent girls are disproportionately impacted by digital violence, recognizing that as technology advances so quickly, protection and protection systems have failed to keep the pace for users, especially adolescents and girls. New and forthcoming studies supported research by UNFPA show that more and more are exposed on online predation, and how parents, teachers, and communities lack tools to respond effectively.
On the occasion of flagging of this year's 16 Days of Activism, I just wish to reaffirm, on behalf of the Spring Program, our commitment to working closely with you to advance gender equality, women's empowerment, but especially advancing the women, peace, and security agenda in the country. We recognize that technology-facilitated gender-based violence continues to pose a significant threat to women's peace and security, and that weak accountability systems for gender-based violence undermine our collective efforts to sustain peaceful coexistence. Therefore, as a program, we pledge our commitment to continue to work with all stakeholders, particularly the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, to advocate for sustainable policy reforms and to ensure that we strengthen implementation and accountability mechanisms, especially as outlined in the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. We are talking specifically about the National Action Plan for Women, Peace and Security.
The Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, expressed the government's willingness to adopt fresh ideas, initiatives and partnerships that will strengthen the ongoing fight against violence against women.
The National Child Policy has been updated to incorporate emerging risks, including digital exploitation, mental health challenges, climate stressors, and conflict-related vulnerabilities. The VAP Act has undergone a review, while several standard operating procedures, including digitalizing the adoption process, have also been developed to fully protect the dignity and well-being of every Nigerian child and woman. Strong partnerships are required to validate and implement these policies. Though we envision our clear roles for government and the private sector, from the judiciary to the health sector, social welfare and education, we note that truly To address GBV, we must work together with concerted effort. The ministry is simultaneously building the capacity of our social workforce through technology-facilitated processes under the World Bank-supported SPACE program, ensuring professional, efficient, and human service delivery. Finally, we're prioritizing the establishment of an emergency GBV response fund. When survivors go to GBV, it cannot wait. We need swift response. Any wait will result to additional violation on these people. So the emergency GBV response fund can never be undermined. This ring-faced financial mechanism is essential to bridging the funding gap and will guarantee operational stability for shelters, SAC centers, hotlines, emergency response, and survivor rehabilitation. We invite all partners to participate in growing this fund. On this note, I must commend the Nigerian Governors Forum for their partnership in driving protection policies. Through their leadership, all 36 states have domesticated the Child Rights Act of 2003, which is undergoing review, and 35 states have adopted the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015, which is also undergoing review.
Commemorations of the 16 days of activism against sexual and gender-based violence happen at events across Nigeria, like this one in Plateau State, where the banquet hall of the Plateau State Government House hosted stakeholders, including gender advocates, students, and civil society groups, as Plateau joins the global community to mark the 2025 16 Days of Activism against Gender-Based Violence. The wife of the Plateau State Governor is accompanied by officials of the state government to flag off weeks of advocacy to create social change and advance gender equality and rights. The theme for the 16 Days of Activism 2025 is Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls. And the wife of the governor used the opportunity to make a call for increased protection for women and girls.
This campaign is a crucial reminder of our collective responsibility to protect and empower women and girls, and to create a society where they can live without fear of violence and discrimination. As we gather here today, we recognize the devastating impact of digital gender-based violence on individuals, families, and communities.
In Zamfara State, the wife of the governor relied on the theme of this year's commemoration to highlight how digital technology has become a tool for harassment, cyberbullying, blackmail, and exploitation. She calls for collective action to eliminate all forms of violence, both physical and digital, against women and girls.
In this fast-growing digital world, our phones, our devices, and our social media platforms have become extensions of our lives. Sadly, they have also become tools for harassment, bullying, blackmail, exploitation, cyber-talking, and emotional violence. Online abuse is not virtual. It is cause of real pain, real trauma, and real harm. We must protect our people in both physical and digital spaces. I stand before you with a deep and unwavering commitment to ensure that women, girls, men, and children are safe, supported, and protected by the will of Allah. Under the leadership of His Excellency Governor Dauda Lawal, our administration continues to strengthen social welfare, access to justice, community safety, and health systems. Today's gathering reinforces that commitment. Our focus this year is not just awareness, it is action.
This year's theme focuses on the rapid rise of technology-driven violence, including cyberstalking, online harassment, unsolicited sharing of private images, digital blackmail, and misinformation targeted at women and girls. To give us some insight into what has been done over the years to end sexual and gender-based violence, where we hope to be by December next year when another 16 days of advocacy will begin, and the readiness of countries like Nigeria to handle this new technological dimension to sexual and gender-based violence is my guest tonight, Mr. Ibrahim Nuruddin, Program Analyst, UN Women Nigeria Ending Violence Against Women Prevention and Mitigation Services Department. Mr. Ibrahim Nuruddin, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you so much for having me.
The 16 days of advocacy against sexual and gender-based violence, I know that your office in particular is your office basically is ending violence against women and girls.
Exactly.
And so we'll get to that in a bit. But I want to talk about the highlights of the 16 days of activism. It's over now, but what were some of the major things that were done? What was achieved with this 16 days of activism?
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much for having me. Just to start with, the major highlight is that now there's been increased awareness about digital violence against all women and girls in Nigeria and globally. There's also increased attention to looking at the existing laws in Nigeria and policies as well to see whether they address this new form of or these emerging forms of violence against women and girls. Because what we're seeing again is that across the world, this is an emerging issue, even though it's been there. But also, I mean, that we are beginning to acknowledge that this is gendered, and it is disproportionately affecting women and girls, cause for a renewed attention, cause for global attention to this form of violence. So the spotlight for Nigeria, mainly now that we now know that Nigeria is ready to have a national roadmap to addressing this form of violence called technology-facilitated violence in Nigeria.
What is that?
Oh, thank you so much. Let me provide a bit of historical context. So in 1995, the global community ratified the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. 1995, Windows 95 was launched. So while the Beijing Declaration remains a landmark global commitment to advancing the rights of women and girls, we also, in the same year, we saw the expansion of access to the digital space because again, Windows 95 provided the leverage for everyone, you and I, to get on the internet and do a lot of things. So it's been 30 years now, and while 1995 gave us the comprehensive landmark legal framework internationally, it also birthed a new form of global community, which is the online community. So technology-facilitated violence implies any form of violence that is perpetrated against a woman or a girl with the aid of the internet. So, for example, it could be on social media because you're a girl, or the use of artificial intelligence, someone using it to sexualize. Because what we do know currently is that 95% of deepfake images are sexualized images of women and girls. You go on TikTok, what you find most are people, either they are cyberbullying, they're cyber-stalking a woman or a girl. There's a report on the internet that says just in 2022, over 200 women and girls were killed in Nigeria, that telling the big story about cases of femicide in Nigeria.
Yes.
In that report, you also find that significant number of these cases started online and then went offline.
Oh, really?
Yes. Are we talking about the case of the young lady who was killed in Lokoja, the student of Federal University of Lokoja, or the case of Iniobong in Akwa Ibom, who was just an innocent job seeker and posting on a social media page that, oh, I'm a job seeker, please, I need a job. And somebody presented himself as an employer and lured her to kill her. Are we talking about the case of someone who confessed before the camera, a suspect who confessed before the camera saying he had killed 7 women?
Yeah, the serial killer.
The serial killer before he was arrested. And these were women he met online. So this is indeed, I mean, a very big issue. And mind you, this is not a less issue as well, just still saying, because, I mean, if you look at one of the very big musicians in this country, a lady, who had nude pictures or nude video online sometimes ago, coming out just most recently saying that that situation still traumatizes her. So while one is not trying to paint any issue less, you know, this was still trying to even understand the magnitude of this violence.
So let's talk about how this technological violence.
Okay.
I don't want us to forget that because we see it's not just one musician. It's a lot of
there
are so many women
who
complain about how intimate videos between them and their partners, even though we're now trying to take the education to where, okay, please stop making intimate videos because apparently your relationships are not lasting forever. So can we stop girls from making these videos in the first place? But a lot of girls have had intimate videos and maybe are not with those partners right now, young girls, even older women. So for the women who are watching and the girls who are watching us right now, what do you do when someone leaks an intimate video of you? What's the course of action?
Well, the course of action is first being aware that Nigeria has a data protection law. So
just so you know, it is wrong that this person.
It is wrong. It is a criminal offense in Nigeria.
Okay.
Like drawing from the provisions of the Cybercrime Act, the Data Protection Law, and several other legal, and of course, the most comprehensive one of them, the VAP Act.
Okay.
They all have provisions, relevant provisions that addresses this form of violence.
So the person has done it. First thing, madam, you know, it is wrong that this has happened to you.
That this has happened to you.
So what does she do next?
So the next thing to do, if, I mean, the perpetrator persists, is to report.
To the police? To
the police. And thankfully, the police currently has a cybercrime unit. Or even to NAPTIP, because I know they've handled a lot of cases of sextortion online and some forms of cyberbullying and cyber stalking. But I know the police is doing well to its best ability to address these emerging forms of, even though the police itself still needs to have a better grasp of this, because this is not only a cyber crime. This is also looking at how, even in the course of reporting, we provide survivor-centered opportunities or approach for people to report their cases, where you are not saying, why did you send your nudes to him? What prompted you? So such kind of questioning methods should be left out. Rather, now we want to deal with a crime, and let's get dealing with a crime and getting justice for whosoever feels offended, particularly the women and girls who have found the courage to report this form of violence. We've also been deepening engagement with traditional and religious leaders to, begin to address the root causes of gender-based violence, which is, of course, our social norms, social and gender norms in Nigeria. In several states, and just while coming here, I left an occasion where a religious and Islamic religious society today launched their SGBV prevention policy, NASFAT. And across the country, there are stories to tell, very interesting, and I'll give an example, just in addition to mentioning the launch of the SGBV policy. In Ika local government area of Akwa Ibom State, the Traditional Rulers Council, having had very deep dialogues with different stakeholders, led by the Akwa Ibom State government through the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, have now abolished harmful widow brides.
Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Thank you so much.
But the good thing about calling out people who are doing the right thing is that it gives others something to aspire to.
Exactly.
Which is the reason why we keep asking people to come and tell us all these things. And I thank you for making out the time to speak with us on Dateline Abuja.
Thank you so much.
And good luck with all the work
Thank you.
you have ahead of you.
But while I've just mentioned ICA, I think it's important to also mention the good work being done by the traditional leaders in Kajola local government area of Oyo State, in Uyo, the Uyo Traditional Rulers Council, in Delta State, in Imo State, in Enugu State, in Sokoto, in Bauchi, in Gombe. Indeed, all the traditional leaders in Nigeria, sorry, not all now, majority of them, and of course we're seeing increasing number of religious leaders also becoming champions of women's rights and dignity in Nigeria. And this is so soothing to see that my daughter can live free from violence, hopefully. My grandmother would not have to go through being labeled as a witch because God has given her the grace of
long life.
That is also a form of gender-based violence.
I want to thank you so much for the work that you do, Mr. Nuruddin. Thank you again for being with us on Dateline Abuja, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you. Thanks to my guest and to everyone who spoke to us today on the program. We close on this quote by activist Malala Yousafzai. We realize the importance of our voices only when we are silenced. So while we still have our voices, let's speak up against sexual and gender-based violence. Be the light that scares the darkness. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screens. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Magwa. See you next time.